Finding Dory. Well, we're not going to talk about Dory. We're going to talk about one of the movies that I saw advertised as Angry Birds. And I don't know how many of you all know about Angry Birds. In fact, are there any folks in here who play the game Angry Birds? No Angry Bird players at all. So that next line of how many of you are playing Angry Birds instead of listening to me wouldn't apply to you guys. But in some places, I'll bet maybe this morning when I get to Dorsey, some of the younger kids or somebody will probably be playing Angry Birds on mom's phone instead of listening to me. But Angry Birds started as a video game, like those of us who are old enough to know Pac-Man or whatever else, and it goes in there and you play. I'm not a video game kind of guy. In fact, my grandson reminds me all the time that I need to get some games on my phone so he can play them. And I just told him that Pop-Up doesn't put games on his phone, that it would be a waste of time. I mean, all the time we were on planes, I would not have sat there. I sat there and watched other people around me playing games on their phone. People riding on the bus from the airport to the hotel playing games on their phone. Well, Angry Birds has gone from a game to almost a culture. There are books, there are children's books about the Angry Birds and each of their personalities and what's going on. But you know, now even a full-length feature film about Angry Birds. But I had, maybe like you, I said obviously, I needed to go on and find out, why are the birds angry? What's it all about anyway? And how did it come about? And all these people are going to see it, so I should know something about it. Well, you know, the birds are angry because the birds live on an island, and they're on the island, and they're invaded by a flock, group, whatever, herd of angry or of green pigs. Not, I didn't make it up, I'm just reporting the facts. Green pigs who wanted eggs to make an omelet. I'll tell you. So they go in and they steal the eggs of the birds and go make omelets. Well, obviously now we get a whole series of messages here on the protection of children and you know, on what's mine and what's yours and all of this other thing. If I was an animal rights guy, I'd be talking about taking the eggs and you know, anyway from anyone and all of this. So this is where the anger comes in. These pigs came in and took it. Now, there was one bird who was even angrier than the others, and his name is Red. Surprisingly enough, red kind of symbolizes our anger. Well, Red is really angry, and Red's angry all the time. So Red gets angry at the pigs and stirs everybody up, because at first the birds were kind of like birds are, like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? Somebody took our eggs, and they're just kind of lost. And Red's going, oh no, we're gonna go get them. Part of me kind of liked Red, you know, I was yeah, go Red. But Red's anger at first generated this huge effort for justice. He motivated folks, and you know what? Sometimes anger does motivate us. I was one of those players who, you know, the angrier the coach got, the more I was going to shove it back in his face. I wasn't going to yell at him, but I was going to prove to him that I was better than that. But then when I became a coach, I learned that sometimes even just being as loud as I am now was perceived by my students as angry, and therefore they shut down. Well, Red got them all fired up, and he got them going, and they were going for justice, but Red's anger continued and continued and continued, and it reached the point that all the other birds were just sick and tired of Red. His anger literally went from a battle for justice to, oh, please get away from us. Please leave us alone. You scare us. You're kind of a nut job. And in fact, they all went together and voted. Red had to go to anger management classes. Well, so Red's in his anger management classes, and he's trying to manage that, he's trying to get through it. So, you know, one of the things is that, so figuring out all the ways that we can be angry, because sometimes anger doesn't look the same all the time. Well, there's a pastor named Carrick Thomas, and he'd written in a message to his church that he believes that there are 4 types of angry birds. One is a shouter who gets mad when the pastor messes up on the scripture. And sometimes the shouter is the most obvious. We all know that. If I'd asked my students when I was teaching, if I'd asked my kids when I was raising them, whenever Dad was mad, he would get loud. Sometimes I was loud even when I wasn't mad and they thought I was. But the shouter was the angrier red guy, the louder he would shout. And that was the shouter angry bird. And usually the shouter is scary, intimidating. For us old baseball fans, remember Earl Weaver coming out, and the madder he would get, the redder he would get, the louder he would get. And if you were in the ballpark at times, if he was yelling at the home plate umpire, you could hear him up in the stands. And it wasn't good. I understand from a friend of mine who sat behind the bench at College Park and sat behind Gary Williams, that there were families who had season tickets behind the bench, 11 rows away from Gary Williams, who had to trade their tickets in because they couldn't leave their kids there any longer to hear the language that Gary Williams used on the bench when he was angry, because he got louder and louder, and it becomes scary and intimidating. Well, Thomas goes on and he says there's a second angry bird that he believes, and you're not a shouter, but you're a powder. All right, that's not P-O-W-D-E-R. Powder. You're pouting. That there are 2 kinds of powders, or powders have 2 weapons. They have 2 passive aggressive ways to get at you with their anger. They are going to guilt you, and they're going to pile on the guilt, or they're going to become really sarcastic. And I guess if they're really good, that they can pile on the guilt in a sarcastic way and put them together. So a shouter and a powder. Now, if you're a powder and you're going, well, I'm not a powder is somebody, well, let me say, there is someone in your life at this moment that you're not talking to right now because you're really mad at them. And I do that kind of like my middle school kids. I'm not talking to them because they just make me really mad. Well, aren't you best friends? Yes, but we're not talking right now. And for those of you who've been in fraternities or sororities particularly in college, probably have experienced that once or twice in life. Well, if you're that person and you're not talking to somebody now, then guess what? I hate to tell you, but you're a powder. All right? That's what you're doing. All right. The third angry bird is a rerouter. So we have a shouter, a powder, and now we have a rerouter, according to Pastor Thomas. He says this, and he says that's the person who takes it out on someone else. She reroutes the anger in another direction. In other words, I come home from work. I kept my mouth shut at work. I didn't want to say anything to the boss or my partner or whoever it was at work that really set me off. And I come home and my wife says, "Do you want to help fix dinner tonight?" And I go, "Rah!" And I become a shouter, powder, or something. But I rerouted it, and my spouse was wondering, what did I do? What did I do? And so then she turns around and she looks at the kids. And the kids are playing and all, and she rips the kids. And the kids are all going, what did we do? And they turn around and take it out on the cat and the dog. And the poor cat and the dog are going, you gotta be kidding me. We were asleep. We didn't chew anything. We didn't mess anything. Even the kitty litter's clean. I haven't done anything. But we reroute our anger at someone who really didn't deserve it at all. And then the last one he says is, and I kind of find this one a little odd the way he described it, but I sort of figured it out. He says is a doubter. And the doubter is someone who, it's when someone has hurt you and you just bury it deep inside. And you bury it because you pretend it's okay. You just don't want to, you doubt that there's any way that you can manage it. So you just doubt it all and you bury it and you become bitter and you become depressed. Now, in fairness, most of us probably use a variety of the 4 at different times in life. We have all probably used at least 2 or 3 of them, if not all 4 of them. And, the real question is then though, if I am a shouter, pouter, rerouter, or a doubter, and I'm angry, then, what is it? We do it at different times. How is it, though, that, again, to remind you, anger isn't a bad thing. It just has to be justifiable and directed in the right direction at the right individuals about the right time. So, but the question is anger your go-to emotion? Is that your first choice? Is that your quick draw? And if it is, then we probably need to look at it. And the first question is what are you angry about? And you go, well, I'm angry because the boss yelled at me at work. Well, are you really angry because the boss yelled at you at work? Or did it become anger because that yelling triggered something else in your life? Or there were other things going on in your life? I know everybody here has tons of things that are going on in their life. In the last several weeks, most had no idea what was going on in our kids' lives. So did anger come out of that? What were we really angry about? Were we really angry at our boss, or were we angry at parents or someone who hurt us 25, 30 years ago? Or are we married, or were we angry at something the church did to us 20, 30 years ago? Are people around you walking around on pins and needles because you're Big Red, the angry bird? And it's just easier to try to keep you quiet and calm. Proverbs 14:29. I don't have a handout this morning. That's part of the disadvantage of being on vacation. I didn't get all that done ahead of time. But Proverbs 14 and 29, I'm going to write right down. People with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. People with understanding control their anger. Control, not bury it, not reroute it. They control it. A hot temper shows great foolishness. And yes, Jesus did get angry. But Jesus was capable and was the proof that you get angry for the right reason, at the right time, against the right people, in the right way. Now that's not always easy, I understand that. So Pastor Thomas says he thinks that there's 4 steps to managing anger. Not getting rid of it, but managing it. And they all begin with C. The first is you're going to choose to do something about it. Sort of like any other major problem in your life. Until you choose to end an addiction, it's not going to happen. Until you choose to change whatever's going on in your life, or attempt to, it's not going to happen. And so you choose to do something about it, and it is a choice. It's so interesting that, and a lot of you have heard me share the story that I worked with a woman who that was that way all the time. She would just say what was ever on her mind, and it was nasty. And she goes, well, at least you know where I stand. That's just the way I am. If I'm angry, I'm going to tell you. And sometimes we do that. That's the way I am. That's who I am. Deal with it. And yet, it's a choice. And I know some of you are going, it's not a choice. Because, sometimes, Rick, I'm at work, and those people make me so mad. I was driving down the road, and that person cut me off. I got around them, they cut me off again, and they made me so mad that I gave them the Hawaiian good luck sign. They made me do it, and yet didn't make you do anything. You chose that as your response. I choose that as my response. We choose that. Proverbs in 29:11 says, fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. Not bury it, not reroute it, not doubt it, all that. Simply hold it back. I mean, think about this. The last time that you and whoever in your house, your kids, your spouse, whatever, the dog, cat, you were furious at them, and you were in the middle of letting them have it, and the phone rang, or someone knocked at the door, and you went to the door from, hi, I can't believe it, you just, hi, how you doing? Yeah, oh, everything's wonderful, it's really nice, yes, it's going wonderful. That's not a choice. You chose to not reroute. So therefore you chose to shout. It is a choice. Now, second one is we go from choosing to count. Count the cost of your anger. Because there's a price. There's definitely a price. When Red first gets angry, the price was everybody went after the pigs to get the eggs back, which was justifiable. It was the anger in the right direction at the right time, in the right way, and all of that. However, when it consumed him, became all of his life, then all of a sudden it ruined everything he had. Count. Do you know what the number one over-the-counter medicine sale is? I got to use a lot of them for a couple of days this week, but mine wasn't from anger, it was from Dominican Republic food or something, I guess. Antacids. The number one over-the-counter sale. Because part of the cost of anger is physical. There is a physical cost. The physical cost, high blood pressure. The physical cost, emotional stress. The cost of anger, emotional stress, trauma. There are some of you living with trauma today that someone created in your life 50, 60 years ago because of anger. Either their anger to you or your anger for not feeling like you stood up for what you believed in then. Count the cost. Red lost all of his relationships. All the people who thought he was the great leader at first then found him to be the most annoying and a person they didn't want to be around. Anger tends to push people away. Either we push them away, or our anger, they push themselves away. And then ultimately spiritual ones. Ephesians 4:27 says, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. And if the devil has a foothold and we're struggling in our relationship with God, then our anger has given him a foothold and has pushed God farther away. Or actually pushed us far farther away. I mean, parents and grandparents, folks, why do you think it's so easy that we use anger to motivate our kids? I'll be honest, it works. Of course it works. That's why we use it at times in coaching. We use it because it works. Because that intimidation, that little bit of fear at that moment, it works. It ends the problem quickly. Unfortunately, the long term may not be as successful. Unfortunately, in the long term, that kid is going to push back. In the long term, what's even worse is that child has now learned that that is the best management tool for controlling others. Is that really what we wanted to pass on? I know we didn't. I didn't want to. I succeeded a couple times. Proverbs 29:22 says, an angry person starts fights. If you're angry, you tend to go looking for it, and at times I don't think we even know it. We end up picking fights, and we're looking back going, man, why did I stir that up? What's the source of the anger? In Proverbs, it finishes, it says, a hot-tempered person commits all kinds of sin. Third, calm down. Calm down and pray before responding. You go, oh, really, Rick? I'm really ticked off, and you want me to pray? Everything in life is prayer. How many times have you gotten angry and then regretted what you said or did? I'll speak for myself. At least 1.5 million. I have no idea. How many times do we look back and go, oh man, do you know who said count to 10 when you get angry? I didn't. Thomas Jefferson. But that's the only part that we have. Do you know that he had a whole phrase there? He says, when you're angry, count to 10. If you're still angry, count to 100. And if you're still angry, keep counting. Wow. Why did we only pass on the count to 10? What a great phrase that Jefferson had. Count to 100, and if you're still angry, keep counting. And we said to calm down and pray. Well, Psalm 141:3 says this. And here's the prayer. Take control of what I say, O Lord, and guard my lips. Well, that's a prayer you ought to write down. 141:3. Take control of what I say, O Lord, and guard my lips. And when trying to calm down, ask yourself again, why am I angry? What do I expect to gain from this argument? And how best am I going to get what I want? Because in the end, that's ultimately what we want. We like to get, well, what do we want? And is it going to be through intimidation and shouting and being angry? Well, James in chapter 9, in 19, we read, even though I read more than we needed, but it says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce righteousness. God desires. So get rid of all the filth and evil in your lives and humbly accept the word of God as planted in your hearts. Next is commit your life to God. The last one. And you will never get control of anger. You can go like Red to the anger management classes, and they're going to work. But you've got to commit your life to God. You're not going to get there because anger isn't an issue of the heart. I mean, it isn't a problem of the mind, it's an issue of the heart. And anger is something that's in your heart. It's something that's coming out. I mean, you will never be less angry by simply working harder to control it. If that was the case, we'd all have it together. If that was the case, we'd all be weight managed. We'd all be in whatever. If just working harder did it, then we'd be there. I'm not saying you don't have to work hard, but that isn't it. You have got to get God on board. You're not going to do it yourself. Matthew 12 in verse 34. You brood of snakes, how could evil men like you speak what is good and right? For whatever is in your heart determines what you say. Anger reveals our sins, our fears, our hurts. You know, I don't know about you, but I often apologize, say, oh, I'm sorry I blew up. That's really not me. I don't know if you've ever said that or not. But you know what? In reality, that really is me. My emotions were out of control. My anger took over. So the real me came blowing out of my mouth. Why? Why? Because it's not an issue of my work. It's an issue of my heart, of where it is, whatever caused it. Sort of like the physiological effects of a real heart attack. I mean, I know folks who've had 70% of their heart is damaged from a heart attack, but they're walking around, they look fine. But the damage is still there. And when you put their life under physical stress, the physiological damage then shows up. Shortness of breath, angina, the problem. You no longer want to be the angry bird, then you don't need an anger transplant, you need a heart transplant. And I want you to know today that God loves you so much that He sent one. He sent one just for you. Just for whatever the issues are in your life. And that's Jesus. Instead of anger management classes, instead of anger management, that Jesus says, I want to transplant your heart of anger with one that is no longer damaged from this world. No longer damaged from the stress, from the hate, from whatever is going on. In fact, Colossians 3:5, it proves it. It says, so put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater and worshiping the things of this world. God will put peace of Christ in your heart in place of anger. So today, when you come to the table, when you come, as we prepare everything that's here, Christ has given us one of the most intimate experiences. That in the translation says that we take Him into us. like the heart transplant. That's where we are. We take him into us. Today you come seeking for the heart transplant. The heart transplant that takes your anger, makes it justifiable, makes it righteous, it makes it correct. It makes it godly. And it manages it that we can pray before we get there. And that the shouter, doubter, and the powder, and the rerouter all become